It's good to be with all of y'all, and the elders will tell you that I am one of the people that I got cabin fever real quickly, and so I'm glad that we're able to be back together in that regard. So this Sunday is a focus Sunday. It's the first Sunday of the month, so it's a focus Sunday. And before I get too deep into this, one thing that I wanted to address was that this doesn't just apply to evangelism. This applies to the entire work of the church, things that we do in preparing for worship, and other things that we do to reach out into the community and stuff like that. So it's not limited to evangelism, and so this is meant for everything that we do in this theme of take courage and rebuild. And the goal that I have in mind is actually still in Haggai chapter 2. In verse 3 of chapter 2, you've got, they're beginning to rebuild, and the question comes up is, in comparison, the new temple, in comparison, does it look better or worse than maybe the old temple looked? And that's really where we're trying to get to. Down to verse 9, God steps in and says, the glory of the new temple shall be greater than the former. And so that's the goal that we want to achieve with this annual theme, is that we have something better than what we started with. And so, if you would be turning in your Bibles to Joshua chapter 1, we'll spend a lot of our time this morning in Joshua chapter 1. And the idea is take courage. That is the second part of the promises that are associated in Haggai chapter 2 and verse 4. Looking at it, the New King James translation uses the phrase be strong. Other translations will use take courage there. But the idea is, last month we looked at the phrase towards the end of the verse where God reminds us that He is with us in all that we do when we are doing His work. And so this time we wanted to take a look at take courage or be strong. And this is an interesting study, and I know we're only 2 months into this theme, but this is probably my favorite study in preparing for this. So I'm real excited for it. So turning to Joshua chapter 1, Joshua we'll see is a really good illustration of what it means to take courage and how we can apply it to ourselves. And so there are a lot of different things. We won't read the chapter. We'll do the highlight reel as we go through the lesson. And so the first thing that we see about Joshua and how he relates to taking courage is that courage is needed for new leadership. Now, when we introduced this theme last year, we talked about how we have new elders in place. You've got a new preacher in place. Hopefully soon we'll have new deacons in place. We've got new leadership in place. And so it can be a struggle sometimes for new leaders stepping into a new role to lead effectively. I'm not saying that our elders, our current leaders, are leading in a bad way, but sometimes that challenge does arise. And so I think we need to address that, and Joshua addresses it in his own way. And so one thing that we see about Joshua is he's constantly, it's almost as if he's living in the shadow of Moses. 4 times in Joshua chapter 1, we're reminded that Moses was a servant of the Lord. 4 times. And then if you turn back to just a few pages into Deuteronomy and just read into Deuteronomy, you're going to see that similar phrase a lot more often. And so maybe, you think about the pressure of following Moses' footsteps. Moses was a great leader for the people of Israel. He led them out of Egypt. He led them to Sinai, and to the point that his influence, the law carries his name, the law of Moses. And so there may be a shadow cast that Joshua is kind of, unintentionally living behind there. But how does Joshua handle that? So in verse 2 it says, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise and go over this Jordan, you and all the people to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. And so early on in the book, in verse 2, we see God saying, hey, Moses is dead. Somebody's got to fill his shoes. And in this case, it's Joshua. And so Joshua is met with this command to take over. And we see that in Deuteronomy as well. And the reason for Joshua being chosen to take over as leader of the people, if we won't take the time to go back and read it, but if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 36 and 38, Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 36 and 38, we see that Caleb and Joshua were the only two that were faithful in the mission of scoping out the new land. And so that's why Joshua was chosen. And then just before Moses dies, he and Joshua go into the tabernacle for Joshua to be confirmed as the next leader. So we've got that transition set in place there. Dropping down to verse 5, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. And again, maybe some of the stress and the struggle would be, well, okay, am I going to be a good leader like Moses was? And the answer is yes, because God is going to be with him. Joshua is going to be able to lead the same way that Moses did, in a very good and effective way, because God is with him. And that's why we spent last month talking about God being with us. Understanding that God is with you will give you the courage to do what needs to be done. And then there's the issue of the people. Will the people follow me? We know God has given me the stamp of approval, but will the people follow me? Drop down to verses 16 and 17 and we get our answer. So they answered Joshua, saying, all that you command us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we heeded Moses in all things, so we will heed you. Only the Lord our God be with you, as he was with Moses. And so he's gotten the stamp of approval from everybody that he needs approval from God and the people. They will follow him and do whatever he asks them to do as their new leader. Now, applying that to church leadership today, applying that to leadership today, there can be leaders that kind of live in the shadow of previous leadership. There can be leaders that struggle to maybe be as effective as their previous leaders. There may be entire churches that struggle to be as effective because of how effective they were in the past. But even here we are told to take courage, to be strong and courageous, even with new leadership, and that we can accomplish what God has assigned us to do. And then we see courage is required for action. The people are being led into a new place, as we see throughout the story of Joshua. But taking action on these commands, it can be challenging. But there needs to be a sense of courage in that. And so, going up to Joshua chapter 1 and verse 9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Have I not commanded you? I know the task that I've given you, and you're going to accomplish it because I'm with you. And so a command to be strong and of good courage, that phrase occurs over 20 times throughout the book of Joshua. And we see it a lot in chapter 1 even. Dropping down to verse 11, pass through the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you will cross on this Jordan and go into to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And so it's not well, you might cross and you might possess, you might succeed. It's not a question of if they will, because God tells them, if you have the courage, if you be strong and courageous like I'm commanding you to do, you will pass over the Jordan, and you will possess the land. Because God is with them, and God knows what He's getting them into. Now again, how does that apply to us today? It's funny, I'm in a class at the School of Preaching right now on church health, church growth, and the instructor is very well informed on this subject. And this verse kind of came up as a result of one of my classes this past week, and that's 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 10. As each one of you has received a gift, minister it to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. And so the point with that verse is everybody in this room, doesn't matter who you are, everybody in this room has something that they uniquely bring to the table. There's something in here that only you can do because it's a God-given talent. And Peter's encouragement is to take your gift and to minister it to one another, to serve one another using your gift, your unique way. And there are maybe some among you who will maybe feel that you're too old to get started now, and I'm not calling anybody old, but we may feel that way. We may feel like we don't have the resources that it takes to move forward in this way. And that's why Paul would write in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, "No, much rather, those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary." Every part of the body is necessary in order to make this happen. And the encouragement here that I would give is if you see a need that needs to be met, whether it be among our congregation or in the community, that is something that we can step in and do, be strong and courageous. Take on that work, take on that project, or at least get it started. If you need help, you can come talk to me, and I know for a fact that you can come and talk to our elders, and they will do everything that they can to help you with the tools and resources that you need for whatever project you want to undertake, as long as we glorify God in that matter. Another thing, again from that same class, this chart kind of came up, talking about the work that we get to participate in the church. And so to participate, 1 Corinthians 12, we get to build up the church in Ephesians chapter 4. We care for the church, Acts 6 and Galatians 6. And we protect it and preserve it, 2 Timothy chapter 1. And so we all have a lot of things that we can be doing to participate in some of these things. And like I said, you each have your own unique gift. You each have something unique that you bring to the table. And the encouragement is to bring it to the table. Let's get to work. Because you would be surprised the amount of good that can be done in that regard. And like I said, if you need help, you can come talk to me or one of the elders. We'd be happy to do anything that we can to help you to be successful in that regard. And finally, courage is required for obedience. And this one kind of seems obvious, considering where this is going towards the end of the lesson. But sometimes we don't have the courage to move forward. Sometimes we don't have the courage to be obedient to the Lord. And, hearing it from this one sermon is not going to be the end-all, be-all to fix that problem. But maybe it can give you some courage and encouragement to kind of move forward with that. Again, looking at Joshua in chapter 1 and verse 7, "Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go." And so in our current culture and in our current world, we get a lot of different ideas thrown at us, just like they did back in Joshua's day. There are a lot of different religious ideas and cultural ideas were constantly in their face. But Joshua here says, when you be strong and courageous and be careful to do all that God has commanded you. Because God's commands are good. They will help you to prosper wherever you go. In the New Testament, we see Peter and the other apostles in Acts chapter 5. They're being told, to stop speaking about Jesus. And they're being beaten for it. And their lives are being threatened. And Peter steps up and says, we ought to obey God rather than men. That took a lot of courage for Peter to step up and say that. We've been talking in our Romans class kind of the environment that those words probably would have been said in, and putting a target on his back is essentially what he was doing. And so, as we look at this lesson, we see that being strong and courageous, it really starts from the top down. It starts when we have courageous leadership, those types of leaders who care for the flock and want to see the flock succeed. And then we see our own acts of service. We can take courage. We can be strong, knowing that our leadership supports us in doing whatever we can do to help bring souls to Christ and to glorify Him through the work of the church. And hopefully, least and certainly not the least, that we can take courage in knowing that we can obey God on a personal level. When it comes to obeying the gospel or being faithful, we can take courage and know that something better waits for us if we remain faithful. And so that brings us to, it's always the last slide, but I feel like it's the most important slide. The one that tells you how to put on Christ in baptism. The one that tells you how to become a Christian and to start living as a Christian. And so if there's anybody here that needs to begin that journey as a Christian, we can help you, assist you with that. It may be cold outside, but I can assure you the water in this baptistry is very warm. And so be very comfortable in there. You won't get frozen to death in there. But if you have been baptized, and you've decided that you've walked away and you feel like you need to get back right with the Lord and be faithful once again, we can help you with that as well. Won't you please come while together we stand and sing.